I'd like you to, I think we have about 20 readers, each will be reading about a couple of minutes. And I'd like to start with, you know who you are, you should know who you are. Some of you are probably still writing your poems as we speak. But I'd like to start by welcoming Jean Hubing, who will be reading from a new book forthcoming, I believe, from Sova Obscura Press. Please welcome Jean.
Okay, thank you, Joe, for that introduction, and happy birthday to Joe. And I'm just going to read from the first section, which is 3 very short pages from Mood Indigo. And I like to think of this as prose and poetry, not prose poetry, that it crosses between the emphasis on kind of lucidity and accuracy on the one hand, and imagination and words on the other. So something in tension with each other, imagination and lucidity. Okay, so first section, each section begins to begin. To begin with ink. I scratch my paper with pen, making abrasions. Little torn pieces of pulp, ink soaking into the fibers. My hand moves down the page, ink marking its passage, seeming ahead and behind it. Inks are low-lying grasslands, subject to flooding by tides. As the salt water rises and seeps into the grass and then quickly covers the depressed land, it makes inky pools of green combed in one direction with few entanglements. Almost a true level between land and high tide makes for a rich sea marsh. Lower by a foot or so, nothing but ink grass growing on it. Some of the sunsets, especially behind the inks, are as fine as you can see anywhere. Indigo is a dye extracted from a plant by the same name that also can be got from wool. The darkest shade, a kind of blue-black, derived from the indigo plant, is the most valuable. Gathered into bundles of stalk leaves and flowers, it is mashed in an alkanated vat. Submerged under water for several days, the dross then raked out, and the sediment, the sought-after dye, not to be disturbed in further labeling off of the liquid. Another technique is to make balls of the gathered wood, stems, and seeds and let dry. Then macerate into a pulp and mix with water affixed with ash lye or other alkaline additive. Or remove only the seeds, wait until the seeds pods turn black and begin to open on their own, or at least rattle, and then submerge. A ship freighted with indigo, cochineal, and other rich stuff traveling from India and Africa and then on to Europe and North America. On their voyage out, they encountered a sluggish water, black as ink. The depth was so extreme.
Hi, I'm Keith Jones. I'm so grateful to be here. It's been such a wondrous, wondrous event. Thank you, Joe, for hosting this. 2 poems from a manuscript called Blue Lake of Tensile Fire. This is the opening of the 3rd part. And it's an elegiac piece for my sister, whom I lost a while ago. But it's her voice is there, but it's her and not indexically her. And Jay writes, our ancestors enjoy the disturbances they create in us, kind of hovers over the piece. Let life atom bloom. I shade no rays, gone after, she said. I buy no passion. I've left letting go whole of you, genetic. Abhorred cursed fields a crossing us, and how we abode that bit of who we are, now and now again. And what drives us down, gathered, it doesn't know, arm around, object, or sound, awaits, born thus, wavers, little temple of our needs. You palm, momentary shade, burnished earth. I'd love if you, I'd leave if you carry me. Of eyes a surplus, what desire is, a nothingness redundant, a not there you look at to see, broken robin shell, river shush of linden, Queen Anne's lace. Not unlearned, the case that is tense, that is pressing you inward as traveling, as actual increments, built to shelter the thousand solitudes we are, shatterings of we. Some lost loss she loses, bright youth that life has not left to itself, that you should not leave, that I ought not to have spoken of, ungarnished weather. Larynx lathed your precious blade, ablaze in lunar lights, lost sound. Dark side of the moon, which you listened to and loved, I hear it, the radiant part, what she called the picture. You couldn't say, closest to, not near enough. Dawn's crinkled gown, I'll home, I'll cavern you, and not remember how I survived. Trimmed wick of flesh, darned final hem, diaphanous.
I'm going to read a cover of Baudelaire. There's no decadence without damnation. I don't share a lot with Baudelaire, but I believe in damnation. This is called Satanic Times Call for Satanic Praises. You, proud son of heaven's domain, first of lords, betrayed by false and stripped of praises. Have pity on us, Satan. We're living in a storm of shit. You, prince among the scorned, stunned with wrong, fallen, feeding on insults and roused to strength. Have pity on us, Satan. We're swimming in shit. You, all-knowing, infernal vicegerent, anxieties incessant, agitator and soother both. Have pity on us, Satan. We're force-feeding dog shit to all of our allies. You, like a leper messiah, like a cursed pariah, emboldened nevertheless by lust's paradisiac foretaste. Have pity on us, Satan, whose lips are smeared with shit we've eaten. You who in death, still sexy as fuck after all this time, gave birth to hope. Have pity on us, Satan, because this shit tastes nasty. You who inspire the outcast and debauched to glare with self-righteous hauteur at the crowds gathered around the gallows. Have pity on us, Satan. We're collecting warm shit. You who shows and tells where God has stashed. You who shows and tells where God, warped by a biblical jealousy, has stashed his precious stones. Have pity on us, Satan. We've elected a sack of shit as president. You whose clear eye sees all the guns one fool after another carries into the streets. Have pity on us, Satan. we're fattening like calves on this diet of shit. You whose harnesses clipped on us sleepwalkers keep us from the precipitous edge and the suicidal plummet. Have pity on us, Satan, because we can't stop shitting. You who restore the broken life of those of us staggering home, hammered with euphoria from our moment of victory, then trampled near death by the horses of idiocy. Have pity on us, Satan. We're beginning to enjoy this shit. You, with your eye on the frailest and most foolish of us, who took us to the gun show with a fat wad of cash. Have pity on us, Satan. We're starting to learn this shit. You who scratched your lurid mark on the foreheads of the plutocrats, but which we have been seeing as a sign of freedom. Have pity on us, Satan, because we are about to do some crazy shit. You who have set in the hearts of all the girls and boys devotion to the cult of any celebrity. Have pity on us, Satan. We're turning this shit to gold. You who have such a commanding presence with your epaulets and your polished holster. Have pity on us, Satan. We are really into this shit. You, father of lies, champion of this earth, God himself holds in contempt. You who can make a television chump with a room temperature IQ look like a leader. Have pity on us, Satan. We have a plate of shit we'd like you to try. Prayer. Praises to Satan from the heights of heaven, where once in celestial regalia of dawn and dusk you reigned, and in the depths of hell where silence now mutes the dreams you command. Let it be that one day, under the axiomatic branches of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, my loafing soul, pressed close in repose to yours, might feel the deepening shade that like a new temple covers your luciferous brow. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of this. This event has been amazing. I'm just going to read, I brought these for Pete Moore, not knowing that I was going to be reading them out loud. It's from a series, ongoing series for the internet, a love poem for the internet. It's called Internet. Some days are fat, lucky rabbit feet, nuclear green for a man-made assurance. Charms against the silt of retribution. Tiny, bright limbs swing on backpack ends. Your hand clasped around a sound, as if you could have it. I await perfection and watch for it, willing to cast off dead shrubs needed for pruning stalk. This is not good soil. It is prone to frost. What is it you wanted? How far have I come? There is me and there is another. At the moment, we ask very little and we stays very still. Sunshine sickness of the daily variety. Trudged up for a new what's it and a cup of coffee. Found memory, found the shock of compassion. The wave brought in a new set of shells. Skeletons awaiting an eager search. These bones for an even trade. Your heart for a piece of specimen, caffeine coursing false. Scroll image nasty text with a knack for identifying clickbait. A live auction for a slice of ham. A living social for family funeral services. LinkedIn. Your other shelves catching on to lingo too late. On the inside, we're internet eavesdropping. Sending discount panties down spam folder long losts. Having the kind of dreams you don't tell anybody about, not even your motherboard. Instagram famous is a term I wish I could unknow. Our generation, an afterthought to digital nativity scenes, learn quick how to disengage without losing a well-equipped mirror face. 5 ducks stacked in a row, your 10 the same. There are some photos I would avoid speaking to at a party. Curated smiles for a face better than well slept. Why do we desire to follow strangers? Who here doesn't know how to make a clock? I am waiting for another chime. You are behind a screen, a gesticulation. A time to check the other site, retrieve, refresh a waste bin. Hours lost on a scrolling image that extends downward, past dead letters and your latest unsaved. Some ghosts are better left for good. Every piece of refuse a sharp contrast. Every day a high saturation. Is it online or inline? Yesterday the internet thought I was dead. Yet here I am, fully expanded. This was a shorter one, it's the second volume. I wrote this between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. when I was nursing that small child back there.
Not me.
WebMD's got nothing on my imagination. Scroll a hiccup, discolored outlet, your phalanges out of order, find letdown in an ordinary diagnosis. It's like, okay, turn the knob, fill a page, refuel on dreams about catastrophe and unhinged latch. Study the names of unaccounted limbs. Physicians with poets' names in another cosmic joke. Your mother's face on every discerning watermelon. A cantaloupe, her knit brow. Plumb the green, pretend to know the difference between hollow indication and a ripe specimen. What did the wire say to the doc? Knock, knock. I am disappointed by my Twitter personality. Insert metaphor for ordinary children. Dull musculature gathering just enough trash and curiosity to watch the marquee again, find void and near-missed lovelorn letters shortened, head leaving space for a stunning boredom, more ode to misuse, make odes to perfect lack, and the quiet child counting in the dark all the way up to 10. Tempted by the fruit of another device, planned obsolescence as purifying ritual. Today, I am reborn in the image of a marginally popular cat meme and feel mostly unchanged. We want everything permanent, said the magician to the plain girl who thought an external hard drive was insurance. Only 976 of those photos were important. Other losses a favor. In the dream where I find my hard drive, I am a bad waitress and have many angry mouths to face. But the eyes are all loading docs, and the hands, white noise.
Good afternoon. Yesterday, some of you heard me read an acrostic poem I made out of Nate's words in Nathaniel Mackey acrostic. Last night, after the reading, I wasn't exactly sure what to do when I got back to where I'm staying. So I wrote Nathaniel Mackey Mesostics from an encyclopedia entry that I wrote for Nate a number of years ago. So there's one encyclopedia entry, 3 Mesostics. Among versatile writers that draw mountain, projectivist, Caribbean, black, improvisational, and Mackey's invokes, channels, frequently inferences, Africa. Continental, his evanescent projection characteristically unites completely. Lyricism, transcontinental, cross-reference, exit, passage. Lyricism, transcontinental, cross-reference, seeking, representing worldly circumstance. Spiritual, psychic takes highly that. Inclusive this, entanglement, blocks, masses, ours, could have, likely, we yet yelled, continues. Raz with the way, meant, exit, passage, unusual. Treatment, malleability, thematically, work, indicates, vivifying. Thanks, Nate.
This was written after seeing Nate Mackey read with Henry Grimes in honor of Cecil Taylor at the Whitney. It's called Cloud in the Shape of Gnosis. A plane flies into the head of Henry Grimes, declining right to left over the sixth surface of sky, fourth going back over brackish. His silhouette is extra mundane and animates the taproot of his mill, spiraling past limits of throne, ever spilling further elsewhere. His grip claps mint into quilting, past clouds, past the sun, to the fixed stars occluded by light. Knowing fullness is a field, is a set of values assigned to every space and time. My mind's body's tight with his kaleidoscopic kinship, base upholding essence in deadpan delivery. His pearl at full gallop is 4, and 5 is 9, and 9 is supposed to be everything. Another plane flies into the head of Henry Grimes, canted in raptness. His ear takes in without rupture. He anchors iterations of uncharted, swerve, pivot, small clearances, and the wind behind see-through tracing ecstasy. Solfeggio frequencies chartered by early green, and the galaxy scratched in his lower bout, reaching deeper than turbulence, deeper than slumber, selves infinitely mounting as chorus effects, as counterweight to flurry and troubling numbness to excitation. The head of Henry Grimes receives another plane, Stanek push to land in patterned space for Jersey, alien dome that can take it, can absorb wingspan and turbine in the line of casting, in sync with mythic lingering. His tune, obliging capsized souls, bobbing in elemental lack, beseeching through unbrushed teeth, rising through perforations, through punctures and a tonic interlace of the unbegotten refrain. Vestments drop from telluric framing and collect at his feet, ready to lift off, as notes unspool without portion control, from woodshed to the serpentine path of whereto we speed, and set for passage through manifold boundaries where what was partial is made one again. He shuts the book on the body before confounding ground control. Can't somebody smile? Can't somebody be a king? On a higher plane above the head of Henry Grimes, jet trails pierce azure and disband in cirrus, unobstructed by inner walls, his denouements suspending, bracing, bridging, holding so much aloft.
This is from The Phantom Light of All Our Day from A Running Witness, just a small passage. Up at dawn every day these days, I'm learning to look into the lidlessness the north wind wakes, learning to gaze into the sky, my invented eyes unveil under acid rain, chemical sunsets, blush of a shotgun bride. The grass blowing east of the merest mention of wind, where there is no wind, no place for a horse in this, the riderless world.
This is a poem called
Baraka, two B's at the beginning. It's a conversation between the proper noun and the noun. Take a seat, says B to B, the flat plane of instruction, a tier above the floor of worship. Though from a bird's nest swaying side to side with prejudice, the shore is both the start and end of water, then land. And every seat's an element if one envisions another seat. Nearby, one with backing, and so a chair, or just a seat in fact, or stoop reduced to just a seat. In brief, a seat that's only a step not taken, one's feet planted firmly on ground. Moreover, B and B beside each other seem to themselves to typify the difference between floor and tier, as one of scale and scale, scaffold. B flat and not sums up in human music, shifting earth, solid states dissolving into middle stages. Because and despite the dark ages of Ahalaya, slow and fast-moving waters deposit erosion, and meander means down, south, and sideways blues impulse, if not the blues of the current serpentine, heresies, the play of eddies and backwaters. Nothing escapes the black holes of Congo Square and Mecca, but the break dances of the prophets and the Amish purity of whirling dervishes. The Georgian call to prayer frees jazz to over sky, and under burqa of the middle left board new arc. To stand, in short, behind a throne, as nomadic camels kneel into neighbors, and contagion marked as neighborhood takes root, and roots beget rumors of trunks. At first, the trunk, at last, at bottom, tree. To return to forest hidden from the eye is thus to see invisible ink streaming across a scroll of upheaval, branches as the upper promise of roots, and stars cast as site-specific installations mean jihadist text, be jihadist context. B, says B, rising to his feet, time to step off, and off he goes, a tangent to the scaffold and its ground, a third way of many ways, mass crusader, the hijab in his wake, a repurposed cape.
I'm going to read a quantum supercomputer poem that I created, and I'm going to talk just for a minute or two about the process, about how I developed this poem. During a preliminary visit to the Simon Center for Geometry and Physics in 2017, I spoke with a theoretical physicist named Giuseppe Musardo about topological quantum computing. I had a basic understanding of quantum computing and was interested in what kind of poetry could be possible in such a context. He introduced me to a promising theoretical model for topological quantum computing, and I conducted independent research on the subject with his help. So in topological quantum computing, pairs of quasi-particles known as anyons, which exist in two-dimensional electronic fluids, are created and lined up in rows to represent qubits, the quantum bits needed in a quantum computer that can exist as 1, 0, or any quantum superposition of 1 and 0. Each qubit has two anyons that are swapped clockwise and counterclockwise in an intentional order, creating a braid. The pairs of the adjacent anyons are measured to produce the output of the computation. The trajectories in time that the anyons make as they are braided are known as world lines, which is the name of my poem. World lines are the historical path that an object traces in the 3 dimensions of space and the 4th dimension of time. Theoretical physicist Frank Wilczek, who coined the term anion, says that the world lines are records of relative motion, a memory of the object moving. At each intersection or tangle of world lines made by the movement in a topological quantum computer, a knot can be made from the braiding and by identifying the ends of the world lines. He mentioned that quantum knots are thought to be related to the Incan textile known as quipu, connected cords or ropes with knots woven into them. And I know about quipu through Cecilia Vicuña's amazing performances. What parts of a poem could represent the knots in quipu in topological quantum computing, I wondered. Like the woven knots in quipu and the quantum knots in topological quantum computing, the knots in poetry are sites of complexity and seem to compress and lengthen the record of the path of the world line traveling through space and time. So I'll stop there and I'll read my poem for you. When we think as far as our world lines, our thoughts become movements in space, motions, time, threads curved as thoughts recording the mind's writing relative tangled motions, knotting intricate paths like strands of DNA intertwined. The mind of a knot is a continuous curve through space, writing woven locations of particles traveling as their orbits of space-time, not particles of indefinite location. The world mind is a record that orbits its knotted history. The poem, an indefinite knot threaded in a continuous curve of mind space, computes qubits, its world lines, the braided motions of mind's memory. Thank you.
So about 7 years ago, I foolishly summoned the temerity to write a Mackie pastiche. And it's part of a larger narrative that's collected in a chap book that came out a few years back called Southern Color Type. This poem is called Corsican Others. With apologies to Nathaniel Mike. Came up with something called something else. Born Sherman and Sam, the two took to being called something unsung, something felt. Called quarter till and the cannot be sold, the took to being called, the two took to being talked into analogical else. Born Sherman and Sam, the two took turns, tethered to decoys, saying little to nothing to each other. Times were, they'd say they were, couldn't shut up about squirming into swollen palms of printing presses, sunken temples called something unsung, something wrung out, ice bags stockpiled on conveyor pulleys, plashing under undercarriage, inky sweat, squall in pits and knees of midnight blues. You can't make anything cold, says Quarter Till, can only take the heat out. Felt called, Quarter Till rose from what could not be called or confused with sleep, dusted off sore subjects, no severance from Southern Color Type, no totem pole or coffee spoon to measure out languid moon, sits at stoplights with shut eyes, looking out through lids to see it all over again, how the took to being talked into other people's dreams, wake up occasionally with words in their mouths. Cannot be sold, asks how they taste. Quarter claims chicken. Make that chicken coop. Cannot be comes up with calf brains. Matter of fact, make that modeled bowls. Modeled light from a cordless moon. Two men slow motoring through drop structures. Music City swooning off at opposite ends of the same intersection. One in pursuit of mountains, the other making its way to water. Call them twins in fraternal order of traffic. Quarter Till dozing in the driver's seat. Dreams he is cannot, the day cannot complain the plant was pulling to the right. On the walls of his post-conveyor skull, cannot sees himself as Quarter Till, clawing at the floor of the plant, with push broom, wearing headphones, the day Lady Di died, the day Tim McVeigh toppled over in his chair. Till takes his eyes off the floor and talks to bulbs mottled with dust he stirred up sweeping, motes spiraling up into the light. Says he hears McVeigh knocking on those pearly gates. Too bad, they'll say. They'll say, we're sorry, Mr. McVeigh. You done killed too many babies. Done killed too many babies. Thanks.
I'm going to read 3 poems from the files of the Eminent Foundation. Nate's fingerprints are all over this book, and he still liked it enough to blurb it, for which I am grateful. Fragment. Banners, trumpets, tumblers, angels on stilts, an allegory of an allegory, in that time or some other, in this world or some other, on a boat named for a Kaiser or a Tsar, statue holding aloft a sword, a speaking statue, Memphis, Memphis, train of priests, train at midnight, lonely whistle far away, dogs, jackals, monsters and their interpreters. What does this mean? And this. And when she wears that robe and he does not look at her, and then he does, and the dancers, and the bulls. Film, after William Kentridge. In the film of the procession, the silhouettes carry mattocks and spades. They push wheelbarrows and broken bicycles. Some have lost limbs and swing by on crutches. There are carts loaded with furniture and a cart bearing a gallows. There are miners and men in trench coats, old women in long skirts, mothers with babes in arms. In the end, they bear whole buildings upon their backs. They carry the city with them, and we may peer through innumerable windows. A man is bound to a chair. A couple is making love. A woman is cooking dinner while her family sits at the table. Then there is a soundtrack, an old hymn or march, sung as a wordless moan, alternately by a man and a child, accompanied by harmonium or concertina. Dispatch for Joe Donahue. It says it right here. Thousands of feet of film are found in the archive. The editing is left to others. They eat the flowers, the ones on the plate and the ones in the garden. They eat the butterflies and retell the story of the famous boxer and his entourage. In each retelling, the boxer is more heroic and his assistant is more of a fool. This is typical. It confirms all of the previous studies. But if the board has its way, we will no longer be privy to such information. If the board has its way, service will be disrupted across the entire network. Free movement between the realms will cease. All of the passages previously interpreted will be returned to their original state of obscurity. Recent polls indicate that the membership is of 2 minds. The consultant suggests the release of an ectoplasmic cloud designed to envelope the grounds of the foundation. This should not be regarded as an unusually drastic move. There are precedents for such action. Consider Ascona. Consider Santa Cruz.
I'm going to read 3 or 4 sonnets. Fact is about loss. I should not suffer to Augustine. We try to say something common for though it did not feel like the sun. Perhaps I forgot a second I'd admit if questioned. Someone will sit soon in front of me so the part of the screen is blocked. It might be easier to lay in the snow and the black stars were too personal to strike a pose. I wanted to make this a clearing, not a raft. We will all get to the far side of the river. That is what gravity does. Around me, voices like subway echoes, soft, elaborate coos. We make several things like that. Shawls and screens and umber, soft palette and bisque. If we could only, scattered as a gone, you have to huddle against. There, again, the utter despair the morning makes of night, we have to live through again, the piece-by-piece reproduction of the fix we are in and our distraction. Though this does not make the dream wrong, nor the way it laces a set of antlers through the branches, lifting them like a wind into chorus, not any less beautiful, not full of the handfuls of the best we throw at the sun. The heart can apparently bear construction like maps and like water, responds suitably to gravity, sometimes soaring up in the day's heat a while, the way a fallen leaf will get caught in a thaw. There is no dark end of the street, except that we can't imagine it. And that makes it better than the time before, as ragged as that tent nailed up over paling sky. And then the last one. It goes against insistence, doesn't it? Morning's slow light passes through me like a river, perhaps lyric, but because of torso or relentless sky, or that cherry florets say, impossible fists of hope, we must be two, world doubled to describe. What's held in a swallow's descent is not just war, but in the later day, long after I have followed the light through to noon, it will be broken. Thanks. Sorry about
I also, in Nate, would like to read the first section, some poems from the first section of my the new manuscript. This is the nature section of the poems I read the other night. The nature poems. The old homology. The upper body of the Sphinx rests on its elbow and forearms outstretched. It can lean on its lower body forward between the peaks of pointed knees if you think of these structures like your own, except in a cat, knees and elbows, or a gazelle. What is a foreleg but a joined, extended bone of palm from the wrist to a single fingernail, a hoof, to which we draw likeness? The homologous menageries we see in the clouds are the starter toys of creativity, it said. To see alike, to make a match, to mind. A child starving near death sits on his haunches, on the ground, nearly the same silhouette as the waiting patience of a vulture, keeping its crouched distance a few feet away. Locomotori. Antelope don't look like they put their feet
down on anything. They seem to pick at the ground, to pinch themselves off the ground up into the air, whereas horses seem to dig at, to scoop away the distance. The wheel almost never lifts to miss a measure, but that sound has no organic round of evolution it is one, unless in a long lost sea, or that roll of the foot flat part, not whole of the wheel, but our own, a broken tape on the ground. Is this why we sing through those death marches, measure, calling out to each other to keep up, to not get picked off, touch the fellow footstep as all that sound of the earth, and to know where to go, silent, traceless, when we steal away and run on the wing. Swallows are making the sky crazy. Not the louvered flocking of a school or finned seabirds, nor the plotted squall of pigeons over a coast of roofs, not the V and line of the geese arrow. Rather, swallows fly with that insect erratic feeler for a head, their buzz targets. They crawl all over the sky, bugs over each other, in as many directions as their complex eyes. See, locked in the focus of the window, the swallows are making the sky crazy. The crackled glaze that their flight fires on the air dare sky to fall tinkling to the ground. Rain, a fall of stars, a snow of stars, the shattering judgment, or an ancient bowl's perfected whole of silence. For that instant, their flight holds in place, a first glance before seeing it move. See the wheel stand still before it turns, to introduce the spoke before it blurs away, the hours before their speed through our hands, and when they end, retain the after image of memory. Why make anything between such scribble the swallows are making? The sky is crazy. Lux. You should wonder what the necklace of your fingernails and teeth look like, for instance, by the bear that ate you. More likely than not, very unpolished. Or a cave wall hanging, too skinny, rug, even peeled open for the floor. More belts and wallets, where bears enamored of accessories, what with the sun-bleached tip of each hair to flop back and forth through their fur, an iridescence, wind-like through a field. How redundant you are in addition, unless useless. If aesthetics have no nutrition, no nutrient, but then you might not even have a beauty to collect, have anything to do with anything except the way you see. You should wonder what a necklace of your teeth would bring among the animal trade. Your eaters, war criminals among your own, were known to string like cowries of victory. Your genitals, in jars on desk, your conquerors kept to terrify their sharecroppers. But animals don't keep containers outside their bodies as their mess. You should wonder what your bones drape like in their stomachs, what your eyeballs light in their digestive fireplaces, what your prune liver makes them shit like jewels delivered to the earth, their gifts for fertilizing the earth. You should wonder whether your ideas of beauty are as generous.
I had to open for Ed. Now I gotta follow Ed. And I just don't know why, because I haven't done anything. I want you to know I've taken 2 for the team. But I'm glad to be on the team. All right. The other thing that I will always point to after this weekend is the best thing that I've ever been a part of in the sort of academia, I suppose, is a jazz study group, and which meets in New York. And this is called a jazz study group. It's the last meeting of which was organized by Michael Veal, who's a great scholar who wrote a book on dub. And so this is in, it's called a jazz study group, and it's in 2 parts. The first part is kind of illuminated etymology. So 3, Michael Veal, verb, rebuild from scratches, from parchment, literally give a name to a bunch of times, electronically, as in our beautiful, the corner from late Old English W, night by striking with a sword, 11th century, a late word, on vellum, perhaps borrowed from Old French, adoubé, equipped with arms, adorned, 11th century, which is of uncertain origin, but there are phonetic difficulties, embellishments, meaning provided with the name of our name, is from 1590s. Meanwhile, dog, the application of paint on sound in poetry, related, dubbed, dubbing, off speech, with pains taken from Kingston groundings. 6. An architectural flow and glacial building as the book folds Larry Young into something like nothingness. Monk says the inside of the tomb, the bridge, is the part that makes the outside sound good, making a little palestra so we can study our intervallic activity. Some crumpled equations tiled across space in overlaid telling, and feel fly. Swing got tessellated, twisted and fractured, pressed and stretched in trade, I'm trained. Swing in free time turns poetry grave when you think about gravity the other way, to unsettle the social clock by stacking time and space. Did you remember the erotic as manual, holding hands with materials that form habitable, protuberant, persistent high densities of soft grind? An architecture grooving, fed massive maceration of the particle, whose traumatic ground factuality derives in circular drifting from evasive anti- and anti-propositional downslide. Their duress in ours, their violence in ours, folding in architecture till anarchitecturally we make what we share. Grasshopper is free. The joint is jumping if the source is open. The definition is a tray of concepts for the space shell and flesh time. The ham bone visiting and carving of its textile. Let's build something in a set of rules we make. If I zoom into the definition, I start to see architectural ingredients. But we came here to be tortured. The castle of my skin is held in grid subdivision. Can I walk around the grid and look at it, see how it curves? Stepping round it drives bursting range out of sounding hollers. Open appositional latia, the labially supple violence of Spencer Dinfiddle's Trio X plus N. That's the general music of our general circumstance, hiding our subspace flex material with that brutal petty shit you did to the sea. It sounds good as a subside in our leaves, been leaving, gone. Building structure is a subset of shaping change until the whole, having become fleshly with amputation and embrace, is our ship. A circle with a fold in the middle on the move. Man, ain't nothing free. The joint is jumping if the sore is open. It's like we measure it in time, time measuring moving, till we feel the space, space tilling feel her need, her stretched thick nothingness into all them extra meals. Sit down around a chain of uneven tables, and underneath the students listen, all in preparation, all out of place in tuning, the circle with the margin in the middle. Flesh dance leaves the body like a flying lotus, storyboard, unbuildable. Brent says, let's detach the history of the music from the history of the album. A transmedial framing, visual accompaniment, discographical accompaniment, packaged as commodity. The music is more plus less than the album. Other levels of scale in the individual song or track. Analibrial scaling down and out a long time, like Joe says. But how can we retain the multimedial affordances, Brent asks. But how can not for me not be for me? Maybe it's the transfer of heat, thread to thread by pulse thread, warm anorthogonal waves. Fournier analysis roils the water to keep it simple while the curatorial thing drags out. Watch him remix that trap on screen. Something like listening to something like Give Me Some Now in Cuba, some Cuba in New York, till Danny says, give the drummer some.
Oh, jeez. I just said to Joe, I was hoping you'd forgotten. I need a little. Thank you. Okay, so first, can we thank this amazing musician? I'm going to read an email from my former undergraduate student, Sarah Reha, on learning that her and her then husband, Scott Reha's Bedouin Hornbook discography and CD set was mentioned in Brent Edwards' talk on enharmonics. She wrote, "Oh, to be among thinking people again." Also, I recollected the music a few years ago and now even have the missing samba. Maybe we should read and listen together via Skype. So if anyone wants to friend Sarah Reha, that's H-R-E-H-A, on Facebook, you can put in a request for that. That pleasure. I'm just going to read a section from a poem called Diaspora. It's a collaboration with Alan Sondheim. There's some citation of Ovid's letters to Augustus from Ovid's exile. It's a kind of a begging letter, that is, letters written by people in imminent danger to people who are in a position to save them. There's a whole archive of these World War II letters. And there's also a trace of Bob Kaufman in this. So this is it. I, Ovid Void, have this to say from my Tristia. My wounds also, if I have committed no crime, may their maker, I pray, desire to heal, and now at length satisfied with a portion of my suffering, may he draw off a little of the water from a brimming sea, and this, that I am diaspora myself, my body and mind scattered across the presumed globe we live upon, that I am dust spattered out from history, tiny coagulations on the verge of disappearing. My hands hold only my hands, my eyes see only my sight, I hear only myself until echo disappears into incontrovertible loss. And all of us now are on the verge, the cliff, the edge of this catastrophe. I, Ovid Void, have already crossed over. I am sadnesses aplenty. I am singleton unheroic. I am blitherer and blatherer, humiliated in self-dissemination. Invert I am, enfolded fetality, arms around updrawn knees, mummified in isolation, face pressed into thighs, wanting a death more certain than beauty and a terror more deathly than certain. Draw the curtain.
Speaking of following Maria Damon, and in a way, Alan Sondheim, who provided in some form early writing prompts for me. Thinking about that, I've read Ed's Atmospheric Conditions too many times to admit, and it seems that it's become, in a way, an unintentional, intentional writing prompt, but the way in which it's functioned as a prompt over the few years has changed. But what stays is that sometimes you just have to go there. I wrote this short piece on Wednesday, no revisions. Pronouns are difficult tools, especially the demonstrative, this, that, these, and those. So I'm still working on notions of proximity. Sometimes you just go there, where, not where, search, bring it here. This is called this thing that must. I've never read from a phone before. It's so strange. Am always searching for someone whom am enough. The thing that must. Even to just rub this hand across that blackened branch draws this trace, that charcoal smudge washed away by water, gone. Saw that face, water-bound, under some half-milk mirror, framed by ripped lumber of this burned-down dock. Am always searching for that thing, jack-stayed, snag-lined, spiral-boxed, cadaver-dogged, and always find it, with the carbon filth of fire on these hands, tracing on the blank, that face swollen, frozen, vacant, undone and done, with nothing found except dead brother, that cold bag of limbs to drag out of the river. Gone, chimney swept except there, and when reaching towards, moves aside. That's the thing, these things that must, to sing this dust, ink of rust.
Right, thanks. Well, thanks, Patrick. It's good. We're reading together again. It's been like 20 years.
Exactly.
I know, that's good. I made that connection too. I'm Chris. I'm going to read a couple of things. I got a thing of a bunch of one-line poems, like 25 one-line poems that I wrote recently in Buffalo, outside the Buffalo Public Library, and was trying to hand them out to people. But a lot of people, won't take a poem. They're like, "Oh my God, that's a rattlesnake." So do you want to trade lines? Like,
Sure.
quick read? Okay, good. 25 of them.
All right.
Limping as dancing. The briefcases pull on the arm. Confident despite flip-flops. One leaf responds to the others. Why you put on that shirt today? Chewing the inside of your mouth. nodding to the music from the passing car. Landscaping the landscape. The book is shaped for the hand. Rusted out wheel wells. Thigh conflict. What cadence expresses? The ratio of the casual to the safe. A short, impatient honk. The importance of maintaining pace. What stripes do to the waist? The lily stops the dude. She changes shoes to leave the office. Heavy bag, crooked elbow. Truck gate rattles over potholes. Finally, the right sunglasses. All the unnecessary receipts.
Numbers.
A couple more. The wrist tilt to bite the apple. The shine of his bald patch. Last one, insouciant hip tilt. Yeah.
Okay, so tomorrow's Coltrane's birthday, and I'm so glad that this is being done in honor of Nathaniel Mackey and the music and the word. And so when we talk about poetry, and we talk about jazz, and we talk about train, you can be thinking of any of a number of tunes. My favorite things, Equinox, Giant Steps, Impressions. So what I want to see is the hands of those who would think about ascension. All right. So here we go. Coltrane's come and gone on. This is out of my book, Somewhere Deep Downwind. This book was done because Amiri put the heat of the elders on me and said, we need a book from you, man. And so here it is. Coltrane's come and gone on. You want to go ascending? Coltrane is God, Coltrane is God, Coltrane is God, Coltrane is God. Our spiritual selves get a kick and rise skyward. Heavens will be visited by us. Blue, black, bronze, brown, bebop, beat, soul beings. Blue, black, bronze, brown, bebop, beat, soul beings. Cherishing vibes screamed out from long ago to echo when we need them most. We will spiral on, sound electrons, charged to move on in our own way, defined in the note's groove. This music coalesces into the totality of everybody's love, something so deep and heavy that this universe is only a drop in its maelstrom. Monstrous convulsions, initiated in the howls of a horn, it's too late to muffle. The reverb alone has shattered stars, ever increasing pieces of light. Beyond our own galaxy, we see them through telescopes, wonder how in the extreme chaos of things, did the stars hear the call, dissipate into the eternal flow, Coltrane's piping shockwaves. Yeah, John, hit that rest stop for the feeble-hearted. Let them gather their pieces in black hole valleys. Slow the pace with a ballad from back there in the before time. Bring it on up from your belly. Breathe, man, circulate air, blow, whoa, 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 brother. Yeah, baby, blow us on your holy way. Coltrane is God, Coltrane is God, Coltrane is God, 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 God. Down the hollow tube of a microscope, mirrored light reflecting the essence of all things made. Gave us the cellular, gave us the molecular, gave us the science of saxing. Look down the tube, every element at Coltrane, the minutest point, the tiniest piece of anything and everything. You look in the eyepiece and there they stand, saxes in hand, Coltrane's. Millions upon millions of the ultimate jazz man. Put them together, sound abounds louder, wail and shimmer in the atmosphere. Sun dance, moon boogaloo, and stars twinkle wildly as our souls flash, flip-flop, jump, skate, slide through millennia beyond time's end, riding the ozone to a higher home. Listen and go, listen and go, listen and go. Coltrane is God, Coltrane is God, Coltrane is God, 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 God. Go on, hear it in your heart and go on. Coltrane is God, Coltrane is God, Coltrane is God, 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 God.
Talk about following. So I'm going to go back and read something that I was one of Nate's dilated pupils. In fact, when Brent was showing that image yesterday, I actually had to think about whether I'd sold my copy of that book years ago, which I didn't, but it has some similar notes in it. I am going to read something going way back that I wrote while sitting in Nate's seminar on Williams in roughly the year 1993 as a first-year freshman in college at UC Santa Cruz. And I'm not going to do it in my Nate Mackey radio voice, although I might be able, I could try. But I once asked him about that. I used to sub occasionally for him on his radio program and ask him how he got the voice. And his response was 2 Heinekens, and it's a little early for me today. Dear N, it's been a while. The library is a zoo, is a hospital, is a school, is asylum for the seekers and the sought in the word, in other words, worlds and mouths, other mothers, brothers, other fuckers and fools, the errors and eroses, arrows. Hey assholes, the library's on fire, the archives are ash, the fish are loose, the students' souls, the seekers, the sought, collude to invent and discover, to recover the outside's in, the animal is loose, and stampedes the elephantine river's map of the body's collapse. Only can we say, shh, you've not been smothered, you've not been smushed so much as you've been smooched.
I guess I'm last. So yes, well, I'm honored to be here. I don't think I've ever read to so many poets whose work has moved me. And I wrote this right after a reading that Ed gave, at which Nate introduced him. And well, there were a lot of striking phrases in the introductions, and I remember Ed's response to Nate's introduction was humorously affectionate, or affectionately humorous? Affectionately humorous. Yes, and one of the phrases, I won't tell you which one, provided the occasion for a riff which became this poem. Ways of appreciating the old guys. All right, okay, that phrase came from Ed's. It came. Do you guys remember this? Yeah? Okay, yeah. There are certain hats associated with the 1930s. A crest added to the head, complementing suspenders. A series of stripes traversing a coarse wool weave, and guitar strings wrapped around a labor movement, sealing it against encirclement of unchecked plunder through a channeling of melodies that float in alley-cat contentment above a tinder-dry prairie. Those same hats turn up decades later. In basement coffee houses devoted to resurrecting the greatness of past nation-shaking movements in the form of free love exchanges of sheet music and chapbook publication announcements. Maps take us back across the last century, topographical details pointing out the peaks of the countercultural ecstasies that left all those fixed images on every older hero's office wall. And one more short one. Page 60. These are both from my 2017 collection, A Modest Apocalypse, which Joe and Maria kindly blurred. And yes, happy birthday, Nate. And it's Joe's birthday today. Happy birthday, Joe. And thank you for organizing all of this. Okay. This one's called Confessional. I write to spill it out, but what pours across my skin is not my soul, but the thick and lumpy coating of my soul. Metaphysical excrement making sticky claims to be the thing itself. I'm left laughing, taking credit for authenticity, and at the same time reserving the dirtiest things I wish to do for my own continued pleasure, not redistributing the filth. But I claim to embody the grittiness of life, while I preserve my porcelain self. A flush is quite against my own interest, which, though public, I'll never let anyone see beneath that whole, stiff, and soiled apparatus. Thank you very much.
I want to speak from the audience and say that this has been, I think I speak for all of us, a really lifetime memorable event, as Nate is a more than lifetime memorable poet. And I want to reiterate the thanks to Mattia, who did incredible work. Jen for an amazing performance. To CC and Jay, who couldn't be here but did a great job with the organizing yesterday. And to Joe, and I think I know as well as anyone that this was an unbelievable act of love to organize this. And I think that was in this event from start to finish. You've heard that it's Joe's birthday. If there's any music left in you, could we maybe sing happy birthday?
Yeah!
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joe. Happy birthday to you.
And finally, thank you to Nate for the amazing body of work that has led to this.
Well, I hope you can listen to a little bit more poetry.
No.
I hope you can. It's Joe's birthday, and I wanted to mark that. I sort of marked it last night. The last 3 zones we went through are from a book called Nerve Church, and it's dedicated to Joe. It'll be part of this box set called Double Trio. Now, that's actually only the exoteric name. I think I can trust this group to not let the esoteric title leave the room. The esoteric title is Triple Double. So Joe's book is the third leg of the Triple Double. And so we can take that as the beginning of a birthday homage to Shay. But I wanted to say thank you to Joe for putting this together. But I also wanted to thank him for having been a friend for so long. I met Joe through the mail in the early 80s when I was beginning to publish Hambone again. I got a poem in the mail from Joe. He was a grad student at Columbia. And it was one of those things that you had magazines for, is to meet people that you haven't met who are doing incredible work. And that was the case with this poem that came in. So I think it was in Hambone 3 or 4 or 5, something like that. So anyway, we got to know each other that way, and we met each other on my trip to New York, and I never expected or thought or dreamed that we would end up being colleagues together. But that's the way things have gone, and it's a very happy course to have taken.